Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. My friends, we are talking about contribution of Muslims in science and arts. This is my second lecture regarding contribution of Muslims in architect. My name is Dr. Abu Abdullah. So let's start Alhambra. Alhambra in Spain. Alhambra, the finest of all Spanish Muslims monuments and universally acknowledged as one of the wonders of the world, is situated in Granada. It has not been fully established by historical records as to who was its original builder and planner, but it has been proved by latest research that the fortress of Alhambra existed long before the advent of Al-Ahmar, the rulers of Granada. The first mention of this fortress found in historical record is during the reign of Amr Abdullah, the sixth Umayyad monarch of Spain, when in 890 AD, Sawar, the Muslim general, was obliged to take refuge in this fortress due to the rebellion of the neighboring tribesmen. Again in 1161 AD, when Ibn Abdul Mumin had shut himself within the four walls of the impregnable fortress of Alhambra, Mortabian laid siege to it, which lasted for a pretty long time. The monarchs of the Alhambra Al-Ahmad dynasty, who established themselves as the rulers of Granada in 1232 AD, are distinguished for having a fine taste in architecture. I am responsible for building as one of the finest places in the world known as Alhambra. The fortress and its four walls, as already explained, existed long before the construction of the inner palaces. Abu Abdullah Muhammad Salis, whose reign was in 1302, Abu al-Hajjaj Yusuf from 1330 to 54 AD, and Muhammad Khamis al-Ghani Billah from 1354 to 59 AD. The rulers of Granada were mainly responsible for the construction, enlargement, and the architectural decorations of the palaces of Alhambra. These palaces, which have been witnessed the pomp and pageantry, trails and tribulations of the successive Alhambra monarchs, ultimately fell into the hands of Christians in 1492 AD. The splendid decorations of the interior is ascribed to Yusuf I, who died in 1354 AD. This unique piece of architectural art was disfigured and in places demolished by the Christian conquerors and rulers. Charles V changed the lesser mosque adjoining the court of Miracles into a chapel, and disfigured the old royal abode by demolishing the southern wing, which probably contained the main porch. He was not contented with his and did even worse when he replaced it with a building of Renaissance style with a showy facade, which was an ugly contrast to the simple outer walls of the old palaces. The great mosque of Muhammad III was razed to the ground and was replaced by Church of Santa Maria in 1581 AD. According to Western historian, in subsequent centuries, the carelessness of the Spanish authorities, which were Christian monarchs, permitted the masterpiece of Spanish Muslim art to be still defaced. It was damaged by French invaders in 1812 AD and further by earthquakes in 1821 AD. Now let's talk about site. Alhambra is situated on a hilly terrace in the midst of the rare natural surroundings. The plateau, river, and the beautiful gardens and forests have all added to its natural charm. This fortress is surrounded on three sides by the river Douro and has an entrance on the southeastern side. Its outer walls are constructed of superfine and red bricks. Hence, it's called Alhambra, meaning red in Arabic. Like many Christian castles, it has a threefold arrangement: a castle, a palace, and a residential annex for subordinates. The Al Kasbah or castle is the oldest part built on the dangerous foreland, and only its massive outer walls, towers, and ramparts are still intact. A short distance from Al Kasbah is the Al Hamra proper, the palace of the Muslim kings, and adjacent to it is Al Hamra Alta, originally built as the residence of the officials. Palace. Let's talk about palace. Alhambra is the villa surrounded by extensive gardens and parks. One enters the Alhambra park through the gate of pomegranates, which is a grand arch built in the 15th century AD. A steep ascent leads to the main entrance of the palace, which is known as the Gate of Judgment, and is a massive horseshoe archway surrounded by a square tower, which served as an informal court of justice. A small door leads to the Arab palace, from which a corridor leads to the court of blessing, a court of pond. This is 140 feet by 74 feet, and in its center is located a large pond set in marble pavement full of goldfish and with myrtles growing along its sides. It has galleries on the north and the south. The 27 feet high principal entrance, supported by marble pillars, is on the south. The Hall of Ambassador is the largest hall in the palace of Alhambra. It is a square room whose sides are 37 feet in length and its central dome is 75 feet high. This was the grand reception room, and the throne of the Sultan was placed opposite the entrance. The celebrated Court of Lions is an oblong court measuring 116 feet by 66 feet, supported by a low gallery resting on 124 white marble columns. A pavilion projects into the court at each corner with ornamented walls and a light domed roof elaborating decorated. The lattice work of wall is extremely fine. The floor is covered with many colored tiles and slender pillars made of white marbles. The walls up to a height of 5 feet are inlaid with blue and yellow tiles whose borders are polished with blue and gold. The famous fountains of the lions are in the center of the courtyard, where a magnificent alabaster basin is supported by 12 lions made of white marbles. The Hall of Abencerrages is a room which is a perfect square crowned with a high dome contained latticed windows in its lowest part. The roof is painted with bright blue, brown, and gold, and the columns supporting it spring out into the arch, formed in an exquisite manner. Opposite to it is the Hall of Two Sisters, which contains a fountain in the center. A dome honeycombed with about 5,000 tiny cells, a magnificent example of stalactite vaulting of Moors, forms the roof of the hall. Alhambra is undoubtedly a marvel of the architectural ingenuity of man. Writing in his celebrated work A Short History of Sarsens, Amir Ali, the famous Muslim writer, says the towers, citadels, and the palaces with their light and elegant architecture, the graceful porticos and colonnades, the domes and the ceiling still glowing with tints which have lost none of their original brilliancy. The airy halls constructed to admit the perfume of the surrounding gardens, the numberless fountains over which the owners had such perfect control that the water could be made high or low, visible or invisible at pleasure, sometimes allowed to spurt in the air and at other times to spread out in large oblong sheets in which were reflected buildings, fountains, and serene azure sky. The lovely arabesques, paintings, and mosaics finished with such care and accuracy as to make even the smallest apartment fascinating and illuminated in various shades of gold, pink, light blue, and the dusky purple. The lovely dados of porcelain, mosaic of various figures and colors, the beautiful hall of lines with its cloister of 128 slender and graceful columns, its blue and white pavement, its harmony of scarlet, azure, and gold. The arabesques glowing with color like the platter of a cashmere shower. Its lovely marble filigree filling in the arches, its beautiful cupoles, its famous alabaster cup in the center. The enchanting hall of music, the beautiful Sergio with its delicate and graceful brass lattice work and exquisite ceilings. The lovely coloring of stalactites in the large halls and of the conical linings in the smaller chambers, all three require a master's plans to describe. The inscriptions found in the palace relate to its decorations and not to its erection. The major part of the construction and decoration were done by use of one. The decorations around the court of lions and further eastward were made in the reign of Muhammad V. Now let's do comparison. The palaces of Alhambra, built in 13th century AD, mark the transition from the Seljuk art in Asia Minor to the style of the Persian monuments. The grandeur of Alhambra may only be realized when it's compared with the contemporary buildings, for example, with the Great Mosque of Sultan Hassan built in 1356 to 59 AD, which serves as a striking contrast of Alhambra. Alhambra is unique, says a European writer. No other example of the Islamic palaces of so early a date and in such a relatively good condition has yet been found. The two adjoining courts in the Hall of Ambassadors resemble the ancient houses of Pompeii. The well-known courts in the style of Cometes in Rome, says well-known Westerner, with their exotic and fairy-like ornaments, can only be accounted for as imitations of these Muslim palaces' courts. The plan of dividing the palace into a system of courts and pavilions in the midst of garden, as is visible in the Safavid palaces of Isfahan and the old Sari of Istanbul, was probably important by Muslims of Spain. So this was my second lecture on architect. Keep on watching my channel, Dr. Abu Abdul. Thank you.